Hey guys, I hope all of you guys are still doing well. I know we've been dealing with this global pandemic for a couple of months. Looks like things are going to start opening back up in my neck of the woods here, probably in the next week, which is a good thing because I'll be honest, being locked in my house for the last 2 months, I'm going a little crazy, right? I've got to get away from the house. I got to get away from my computer. I need to just get back, doing things, especially being active. Just sitting all the time at the house and, can't go to the gym, can't exercise, can't go watch a sporting event, can't do anything, can't go walk the mall. And I think a lot of that kind of stuff, the fact that so many people right now are just sitting at home, being lazy, doing nothing but eating and drinking and just getting fat and unhealthy. I think a lot of that's probably doing more harm than the actual virus. So I'm glad things are going to open back up in a couple of days. One of the things I wanted to discuss in this little video here is you guys have been asking me, have I ever been seduced by proprietary software? Because you guys know I try to stick to nothing but free software where possible. And the answer to that question is absolutely. I sometimes do get seduced by proprietary software. Like sometimes I'm pretty hardcore, right? I'm pretty much a zealot when it comes to using free and open source software all the time and just avoiding proprietary software unless I absolutely have to use it. But there are times, I'm not going to lie, here recently, where I've thought about switching some of my free and open source programs over to proprietary alternatives for sake of convenience. And thankfully I haven't done that. Thankfully I came to my senses and didn't do that. But I'm not gonna lie, there's been a couple of free and open source programs that I've used here recently that have kind of bugged me enough to where I've almost uninstalled them and went and got the proprietary alternatives. And if you're wondering what those free and open source programs that have driven me nuts here recently, it is the audio servers on Linux, all of them, but mainly Pulse and Jack, right? Audio on Linux, I just have been fighting with it forever, ever since I switched to Linux, right? Our audio situation on Linux has never been as good as the proprietary alternatives on Windows and Mac. And it's one of those dirty little secrets too with Linux content. You guys that watch Linux YouTube channels, some of the bigger ones that you guys watch, it's a secret that a lot of them don't tell you, but many of them are actually producing their content on Windows or Mac. Many of them. Now, because on video, sometimes you have to show your screen, a lot more, most of them of course are doing their content on Linux, but especially audio only podcasts, because you don't really see what's going on an audio only podcast, right? Most of those, I would say most of your Linux podcasts, if they're audio only, most of those guys are probably doing some of that production on Windows or Mac. And that's probably shocking to a lot of you guys that consume that content, but it's also understandable because some of these guys are trying to produce professional quality audio and video. And in some ways it's easier on the proprietary alternative operating systems, Windows and Mac. It just is. Another program that I've been using for years, free and open source program that I promote heavily and tell you guys, it's great, but it does drive me nuts sometimes, Kdenlive. My video editor of choice is Kdenlive, and man, sometimes, it receives a lot of updates. Some of those updates, though, it seems like they're a complete crash fest. I'll update to the latest version of Kdenlive, and it crashes all the time. And it drives me nuts because, it wastes my time when I'm editing video if the editor is constantly crashing, or sometimes you even lose work. That's the worst thing. If you didn't have something saved and you lost like the last half hour of your work that you've been doing, that is so frustrating. You can't imagine how pissed off you are when something like that happens, especially when you're working, 4 or 5 hours on a video, and then something like that happens and you just realize, damn, the last 30 minutes of my work I just lost because of this crash in Kdenlive. And obviously, the first thing you think of, I need to find an alternative. And, there are no good free and open source video editors. I mean, there's several out there, But really, if I was going to switch away from Kdenlive, I'd go to the big proprietary alternatives, which on Linux would be DaVinci Resolve or Lightworks. And I've come this close to purchasing licenses for DaVinci Resolve or Lightworks a couple of times since starting the channel. And, you know, it's not the price of those licenses that has stopped me, although they're both very expensive. DaVinci Resolve and Lightworks, and I'm sure they're fantastic editors, but they're proprietary, but they cost several $100s for a license. You know, I would probably buy a lifetime license if I purchased Lightworks or DaVinci Resolve. But it's not the money. I'll spend the money because it's, you know, for the channel, right? I'm making money on YouTube. I should spend money on these products that I use. I mean, I donate money to Kdenlive. I don't mind paying for the software that I use that makes me money. But the reason that has stopped me from doing that is I would feel ashamed, really, you know, being a self-proclaimed free and open source software advocate. If I was producing my content on proprietary software, if I was using a proprietary operating system like Windows or Mac, or if I was using a proprietary video editor like DaVinci Resolve, or proprietary audio editors or digital audio workstations like Reaper or Bitwig or something like that, you know, I wouldn't be able to look in the mirror and respect myself if I did that. So that's the reason I've stuck with it. I know some of you guys are probably going to say, well, that doesn't sound like a very good reason to stick with it. If you think the proprietary alternatives might be better, why don't you switch to them? Well, you know, for me, it's more about the movement and promoting Linux and free software and open source software than using the best software. That's for me. That's not for you guys. You guys do you, but for me, I'm out here trying to promote something, right? I'm trying to promote free and open source software. So I can't really compromise like that. You know, now I'm not Richard Stallman. Now Richard Stallman could only use free software. That's all he could use because he's the leader of that movement. He knows everybody's watching him. He's going to be criticized if he ever used a single piece of proprietary software. Actually, Richard Stallman knew he was going to be criticized regardless of what he did. But it's, you know, I'm not in the spotlight like that. But yeah, I can't just use proprietary software. You know, I would get flamed a little bit if I switched to something like Lightworks or DaVinci. And also, I want to stick to free and open source software where possible because, I mean, if I'm preaching that, you know, I can't compromise my ideals for convenience. And that's what I would be doing. If I switched from the free and open source programs that I've been using to proprietary programs just for convenience, I would be compromising my ideals for convenience. And again, I couldn't respect myself if I did something like that. That's one of the reasons why I kind of respect Richard Stallman. Well, actually, I have a lot of respect for Richard Stallman as far as his conviction to sticking to only free software and really never budging an inch. It's one of those things, a lot of people see Richard Stallman as an extremist, which you can say he's an extremist, but the thing with Richard Stallman is because he was leading a movement. You know, you want people to come over here to free software, right? How do you do that? Well, you do that by standing firm. You get way over here on the left for free software, and you make all those people on the right that are using proprietary software and promote proprietary software meet you in the middle, right? So you don't move. You make them come to you. Richard Stallman never went toward them. He never gave them an inch, right? He never budged off of his principles and his ideals as far as free and open source software, or in his case, just free software. So you got to give Richard Stallman, you know, a lot of credit for that. But as far as, yeah, have I ever been seduced by proprietary software? I have never, at least not yet, switched to an open source program and then switched away from it for a proprietary solution. I've never done that. I still occasionally have to use proprietary software, but it's either stuff that there's no open alternative, you know, like proprietary drivers, or sometimes proprietary software, but there's no good open source alternatives. But I've never switched to the open source alternatives and started using them and found them acceptable and then left them later to go back to proprietary software. I've never done that, but I have been seduced a little bit. I've thought about it, but thankfully I've had a strong enough constitution that hasn't happened yet. Anyway, hope you guys are still staying safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.